Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 11, The Distance. Sorry my review took a little while to come up, guys. I meant to watch it last night, but I ended up falling asleep last night. And that's because the Oscars, of course, were like 3 hours long last night. Were like 3.5 hours long, so it was almost 4 hours long. So basically because of that, I wasn't able to see The Walking Dead. I started it, and I finally finished it, so finally I can review it to you guys, and let's get into this episode. I have to say, this was another great episode, and I'm really liking the way The Walking Dead is doing their style. A lot of people are not liking the slow pacing of it, but I really like it because it's like the group is split up and they're trying to find somewhere to go, and this episode really focused on can they trust this guy, Aaron, and I myself was like, there's no way they can trust him. However, this episode might have made me change my mind. But let's just get into this episode. I thought this was a great episode. Not the best episode of the season, but I definitely thought it was one of the best episodes of the season. So let's just get into it. So basically, the gang is still in the barn where they hid out from the thunderstorm, and Maggie and Sasha come back with Aaron. Then they tell the others that he's alone and they took his weapons, and great. And he's faced, which I think is smart to do, taking his weapons, because they don't know if he is a threat. So if he has no weapons, he can't do anything to them. I think that was really smart of them. And he's faced with all kinds of aggressive attitude, and Rick hands Juve off to Carl, goes to face the guy, and right away Rick is like, there's no way I can trust this guy, which is understandable. I mean, when was the last time they stumbled across someone they could trust besides Gabriel? Gabriel, like, that's the only person they could be able to trust, and I think one of the themes of this season is that not everybody is a terrible person. I think that's really the theme of the season, and he's faced with all kinds of aggressive attitude, and basically, Rick hands Judith off to Carl, goes to face the guy, he asks what weapons he had, and Maggie hands over his gun, and Rick, because of course he wants to know what weapons he had, because he wants to know if, maybe he wanted to kill them, or what exactly his mission was, because, I mean, the last people they dealt with were cannibals, so definitely Rick is very suspicious about this guy. And Rick tucks it into his waist and asks what he needs, and Sasha says Aaron has a camp nearby and wants him to audition for membership. And Aaron says audition seems like a strange word, and it jokes that they're actually not a dance troupe, and it's not a camp, but it's actually a community, and he thinks that it would be all valuable additions, but isn't his decision, and he says it's his job to get them to come back with them, and he asks Sasha to hand Rick his pack, and she does, and he tells Rick to look for an envelope, and says he brought something to convince them, and says it's not great picture quality. Now, at this point, I'm like, I kind of understand what he's saying, but at the same time, it kind of just seems like he's trying to find a way to get them to coax them into coming with him. And Daryl says no one gives a shit, and Aaron agrees, and they see a photo of a fence supported with poles. He says each panel in the wall is 15 feet high, and it is solid steel, and he gives them technical specs and says nothing alive or dead gets through it without their permission, and Aaron says the only thing more important to them than security is people, and he says together they're strong, but they can make it, but they can make them stronger, and he describes the next foe, but Rick walks up and punches him in the face, knocks him out. He does not give a shit what he's saying. He does not believe a thing he's saying, and just Rick does not want to listen to him. So Michonne's asking Rick why he initially attacked Aaron, which is understandable why she's asking, because, I mean, like, he seems innocent. He does, but at the same time, you don't know if he's innocent just because of the people they've had to deal with in the past. You just don't really know if he's innocent or not. So Rick sends everyone to look around and says they're coming for it, and he says to search Aaron's pack to see what he's really up to, because he wants to know what weapons he has. He wants to know what he's hiding, and he just needs to know. So Carl finds Carl finds a flare gun in the pack, and Maggie tends to Aaron, and he comes to, and finally he's been bound. And Aaron tells Rick it was a hell of a right cross, and Rick asks how many people are out there, and says the flare gun is to signal them, and Aaron asks how it matters, and Rick says it does, and Aaron says it matters, but says he could tell him any number and Rick won't trust him, which is true. If he said any number of weapons he had, then Rick still would not trust him, because that's just how untrustworthy Rick has become, and I think part of this season is slowly trying to get the group back their trust. They need to understand that he seems pretty trustworthy. He seems sincere at this point. And at this point, I'm like, you know what? He seems pretty sincere, definitely. And Aaron says he left them the bottled waters in the road, and I knew it was either him or Morgan. I predicted that. And Daryl asks how long they've been following them, and Aaron says they're survivors that have never turned on each other despite how rough it's been, and Aaron says good people are the most important resources in the world, and Rick asks again how many others are there, and Aaron then says once again that he knew Rick wouldn't believe him, And Aaron asks what it will take to convince him that this is real, and he offers to drive them all to the community, and Rick asks how will all 15 fit in a car, and he says they drove separately and describes where they parked their vehicles, and he calls the walkers roamers, which I find kind of interesting, because in a way they kind of are roamers, because I mean, they just roam around the woods and just roam around the world, basically. So I can understand why he called them roamers. I thought that was interesting that he said that. And he says, Rick says he really thought it through, which he did. It really is a very organized plan. But of course, Rick is thinking that, okay, maybe this guy wants to just kill us, and he's trying to get us to go in there so he can just kill us and everything. And they could be dealing with another governor and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of things going through Rick's head right now. So Aaron says he could have burned the barn down where they slept if he wanted to ambush them. He says they can trust them. And I think that line right there just shows that, yeah, they can trust him. I mean, if he really wanted to do something bad to them, he would have kidnapped them. He would have done it already. That's how these people work. There's no, like, thinking about it. These people don't think about it. I mean, like, Terminus, they didn't think about it. They did what they wanted to do, and Aaron, I think he definitely is sincere here. So, Michonne offers to go check out the cars. Michonne says she's not as sure as Rick is, and Maggie agrees with Michonne. He tells them that his way is dangerous, and Michonne says they can't pass up on a place where Judith could live is dangerous too. And she says they have to find out what this is, and says they can handle themselves. And Glenn says he'll go along too, and Abraham and Rosita agree to go along with them. And Rick hands Glenn the gun he took from Aaron, and he says they'll come after them if they're not back in 60 minutes. The others go to take up posts outside to watch for any enroaching, and that leaves Rick with Aaron, who says he worked for an NGO to deliver food and medicine to people in need. And he says he's used to bad people putting a gun in his face, but tells Rick he's not a bad person, and he wants to help them, that he can legitimately trust them. And basically, Rick says that just because they're good doesn't mean he won't kill him, which is I can understand Rick's point there. I mean, you can start off as a good person and then just go crazy. It is one of those worlds where you can end up going crazy. I mean, people have gone crazy in this world. Think of people like Lizzie. They had to sacrifice her because she went crazy. Lizzie wasn't crazy at first, so she had that conversation with Carol, and that's referencing people like Lizzie. I mean, there are people like that out there, and Aaron could be one of those people. So I like how cautious Rick is being, but at the same time, he shouldn't make false accusations against a guy he knows nothing about, because he could be sincere, and I think that Rick definitely needs to find a way to be a little bit more trustworthy. So Rick says just because they're good doesn't mean he won't kill him, and he tells Aaron if his people aren't back safe in an hour, he'll put a knife through his skull. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Because if they're not back, then he sent them on like a wild goose chase or is doing something bad to them. I can understand that. That I can understand. But I do feel that Rick needs to be a little bit more rational. I understand that Rick's in no one gives a shit mode, and he's now in just survival mode, full survival mode. He's doing whatever he can to survive, and that he's basically going to act like a walker. Because as he said last week, they are the Walking Dead, and I think what that really means is that they're going to act like walkers. Because what does walkers do when they approach humans they don't know? They kill them. That's what they do. So they're going to do the same thing. For someone they don't know, they're just going to kill him and sacrifice them. They're not going to have him join their group if he's not good. So I like that Rick said that because it really goes back to that quote. So Glenn tells everyone weapons up and eyes are open, ready to fire. Michonne asks if they should shoot on sight and asks what if Aaron is telling the truth. And Glenn says anyone who walks up on 5 people holding guns isn't coming to say hello. And Glenn says Aaron saw them yesterday and wonders why he'd still want them. And Glenn says he doesn't know what the guy saw. And we see someone hiding behind the wheel of a tractor as they walk up. Judith's crying. Aaron says there's applesauce in his bag. And he says it's not a trick. He just wants Judith to stop crying. And Rick brings up Aaron a spoonful of applesauce to taste first, which I can understand that, because, I mean, the whole thing with the water bottles last week, I mean, it all goes back to that, because he could have put something in the applesauce, and he says he's not trying to poison his daughter. Rick says maybe he'll make her sick, and he'll try to blackmail him to a cure, and Aaron says he hates applesauce because his mother was crazy, and Rick insists, and Aaron takes the bite, and he's completely fine. So that right there should have shown Rick that maybe this guy isn't as bad as he is, but in the world they live in, Rick is not really thinking straight right now. So Aaron says they can all find a place for all of them, and Rick tells Aaron he has 43 minutes left, and Glenn and the others have guns out, and Michonne says Aaron was telling the truth, and I like that Michonne was, the one Michonne's sort of becoming the moral compass of the group. She really is. I mean, Tyrese was and he died, but I think Michonne really is the moral compass of the group now, and on talking to them, they discuss this, how she really is the most rational of all of them. I mean, she legitimately thinks that he is telling the truth, and honestly, out of all of them, she really is the most rational. She's thinking things through. She's not crazy like Rick is. She's not like, oh my god, we need to kill him right now. No, she legitimately feels that he could be telling the truth, and I like that she has that in her mind, because honestly, yeah, he could be. He seems really sincere, and he seems like he really cares about them and does want to help them. And they have to keep in mind that not everyone in the world is a deadly savage. Not everyone. I've said this before, there really is no such thing as safe, but that does not mean there aren't bad, good people in the world still. That is not what that means. I mean, Gabriel, thinking Gabriel, he still has his morals. He still does. And Aaron just seems like a guy that's just a nice guy who wants to help out people. Definitely, he seems like he's that kind of person. Which, isn't that what they are trying to do? Just trying to save themselves? So, they should trust, Aaron. I mean, they did the same thing to other people. They brought people into their group, so why not trust him? So they hear a noise, and Abraham goes down, but it's just a bunch of walkers, and Abraham and Rosita dispatch them quickly. They open the RV door. That was awesome. The way they're not even scared of walkers anymore, because they basically are the Walking Dead, as they said. So they open the RV door, go inside to look around, they clear it, and Abraham is thrilled to see a can of SpaghettiOs. He said it's been a while, and that it's a fun scene, because, I mean, they haven't eaten in so long. You feel so happy that they actually have real food, and even if it's just SpaghettiOs, you feel so happy for them, especially the shit they went through last week. So Abraham asks her if she thought he was going to hurt her after the fire truck incident with Eugene. She says no, that's not him, and I like that she said that, because Abraham came across as kind of abusive and kind of a bad temper, but he's slowly starting to calm down, and slowly just starting to become a good guy and not someone who's just abusive all the time. Because I will admit, between Rick and Abraham, Rick is the more rational one, definitely. Because Abraham is explosive. He doesn't think things through. He's kind of dumb at points, and I like that he's starting to calm down, definitely. Because I really do like Abraham's character, and I think that Eugene has helped him calm down, definitely. So the others get back with everything they took from the RV, and Rick says that there's no matter what. Michonne says Aaron isn't lying and doesn't seem to want to hurt them, and she says they need it, so they're all going. And she asks anyone that feels differently to speak up, and Daryl says the barn smells like horse shit, but he doesn't know. And Rick agrees that they're going. He asks Aaron what their camp is, and I think that's a legitimately good question. I mean, what's the name of the camp, if he's really sincere? I think that's a good question. He says he always drives the recruits back, and basically he says he bet his life that they're good people, but Michonne insists he tells them and says he's not driving, and he gives them directions to a certain extent and says that he'll tell them more. And Rick wants to take an alternate route, but Aaron says that's not a good idea since they cleared the other road, and Rick says they have to go at night in case things turn bad so they can get away in darkness. So Rick tells everyone to eat and get some rest before nightfall. They brought the RV and candy to the barn, and Rick tells Michonne that he wants Aaron in the car with the two of them and Glenn, and I can understand why he wants that, because, I mean, if Aaron really is lying, then he could just kill him right then and there. And he asks Michonne if she's okay. She asks if he really wants to go, or is he just trying to get info from Aaron. And he says they're going, which he really is just trying to get information out of Aaron. That's what he wants. He wants information, but the thing is, Aaron's not going to give him that information yet, because he honestly should not. It's none of his business, some of this stuff. It's none of his business what Aaron's company is right now, because he hasn't even accepted the offer. So why should he give him all this information? That's what I'm going to say. Rick does not understand this. He's not going to give you information simply because he's annoyed by you, okay? He's not intimidated by you, and I think Rick needs to understand that Aaron really is not intimidated by them because he genuinely wants to help him, and I think that's really why he's not scared of them. So, basically, after this, he says they're going, and he asks Michonne when she first came to Woodbury and what they heard outside Terminus, and she says nothing. And Rick says without seeing inside, he has to decide whether to bring his family in. And I like when he said that, because, again, they thought that Terminus was their safe haven. That's what they thought. But then, of course, they turned out to be cannibals, so I can understand why Rick is doing this. I like that Rick is trying to think this over. He's thinking through. He's not being dumb and just saying, okay, we're going to go here. But they're supposed to go to Washington. However, if this guy really does have a safe haven, they should at least check it out. They should give him the time of day, definitely. I mean, he is trying to help him. He's going out of his way, and I think they can trust him. So Rick tells Michonne that he wants Aaron in the car with them, and Glenn, he asks Michonne if she's okay, and she asks if he really wants to go, or is he, I just read this. Basically, Rick says without seeing inside, he has to decide whether to bring his family in, and Rick says Aaron asks what it would take to believe it's real, and Rick says he's not sure anything or anyone can convince him to go in, but he'll see. So the gang takes off with Aaron, and Rick finds a cache find full of license plates, and Aaron says he's trying to collect all 50 states for his house, which I can understand that, because, I mean, if he's trying to save all these people in the world, then he should be trying to go after everyone for the most part. I mean, go after everyone in the United States. It seems like Aaron just is trying to get all the safe people and just get them into his house, because that's the safe place. And Michonne asks about his house, and he tells her to look through the photos. She does, and asks why there are no photos of the people, which I can understand that. He said he took one in the group, but it didn't come out right. She asked Rick if he asked the guy the other 3 questions, and Rick says no. And, of course, we know what those 3 questions are, because whenever they have someone new to the group, they have to ask them these 3 questions. They asked it when that one random girl who turned into a walker almost joined. They asked it when Gabriel joined. They have to ask it when Aaron joined, which, when you ask them those 3 questions, that pretty much tells you if they're good or bad. So Michonne asks how many walkers he's killed, and he asks what, and she asks again how many, and he says a lot, and she asks how many people he's killed, and Aaron says 2, and she asks why, and I like that she asks why. She's not like Rick, who just assumes things. She actually asks why, and she actually thinks about it, which I really do like about Michonne. And he says because they try to kill him, Rick finds, which I can understand that, so Rick finds a parabolic mic and realizes they were listening to them. Then they plow into a whole road full of walkers, their red lights run red with blood, and the car comes to a stop. Rick gets out. Rick says he doesn't see the RV. They agree, so go back and go after them. Glenn wipes the goo off the windshield and tries to crank the car, but it founders, and through the gut-soaked windshield, they see a herd of walkers coming at them. Michonne gets out, pulls body parts out of the engine. They then see a fire flare. Rick asks who did that. Aaron says to let him out and says it's over. He knocks Michonne out of the way, flees out the open door and into the woods, and Rick tells Michonne to leave him. He fires into the woods, then at walkers. Glenn's in the woods shooting at walkers. One creeps up behind him, knocks him down, bashes its head. Glenn finds Aaron trying to fight off a walker, but his hands are bound, and Glenn takes the walker, then cuts Aaron's ties. He tells Aaron to run if he wants, but Glenn says they can make it together. He says he was listening to them and heard Glenn Glenn says they can only make it together. And I like that Aaron said that, because that proves that he is sincere. He actually is listening to what they're saying to him. Even though it seems like he's not, he is listening to what they're saying, and I really do like that about Aaron, definitely. He really is trying to be as trustworthy as he can be, and I love that about Aaron. So, Rick calls out for Glenn. He and Michonne head into the woods. Rick runs out of ammo, shoots one walker with a flare. The other walkers press forward, and they face them hard to hand, but then they are mowed down by Aaron and Glenn. The 4 head off in the direction Rick indicates. They make it to the road, and Rick asks Aaron where the others are, and he says this is a trap. He will kill Aaron's people tonight, and they head in the direction of the flare. They catch with the others, and Aaron asks where Eric is, and I'm like, who's Eric? Who is Eric? And Rick follows him inside, and of course, he wants to know legitimately who this Eric guy is. And Eric, seems like one of the most harmless guys we have ever seen on this show. Like, he is more harmless than Gabriel. He, to me, looks like the kind of guy that definitely isn't very defenseless. He's very defenseless. He doesn't really like to defend himself. He just seems like the kind of guy that's just going to get hurt. So Eric's ankle is broken, according to Maggie, and Aaron kisses him, and we find out that, yeah, Aaron and Eric are actually a gay couple. So once again, the group is dealing with something they haven't before, and that is a gay person. They haven't had a gay person in their group, which I actually like seeing, because they had Gabriel, who was a man that has morals, and now they have Aaron, who is this gay guy that is trying to recruit people to help them and save them, basically, which I find very interesting, and I like that they keep bringing people in with different kinds of personalities, because all the other people in the group have just, they have personalities, but they don't have them right now, because they basically have turned off their humanity switch. You know, the Vampire Diaries and the originals, where, you know, when you're a vampire and, like, you have a humanity switch and you can turn it off, that's basically what the people in the group have done. They've turned off their humanity switch because they don't really have much of one, right? They're not really humans right now. So he says he found something while waiting for him and gives him a new license plate. He then asks if Aaron lost them, and I like this scene because it really shows Aaron and Eric's chemistry. And I actually really do like them here. I want to see more of Aaron and Eric because I definitely do like their characters. So Aaron says he lost the whole car, and Eric says at least the RV scares the roamers away. Eric introduces himself to Rick, and Aaron and Rick walk back outside. Aaron has to speak to everyone, thanks them for saving Eric, and he says he owes them all, and he says he will make sure that debt is paid full at their community, and he calls it Alexandria. And he tells them that he'd like to avoid driving tonight and asks if they can leave in the morning. And Rick says Aaron needs to sleep over there because they don't know him and they don't know if they can trust him. So Aaron says he's going to be with Eric, and the only way Rick can stop him is to shoot him. And Glenn tells Rick that they told them where the camp is, and there's just 2 of them, and they're unharmed, and one has a broken leg. And basically, Glenn's trying to convince Rick that, yeah, you can trust him. I mean, one has a broken leg, one is unarmed. They both look extremely harmless, but they do say that the harmless ones are usually the bad ones. So I can understand that. Definitely I can understand that. But at the same time, I mean, you don't know. So Glenn says he can't give everything up because it doesn't matter, and Rick says all right. Next day, they head to the community, and Aaron sits by a sleeping Eric, and Noah brings him some aspirin, and I really like this scene. Aaron asks about Noah's leg and how it happened, and Noah says he was in a car accident with his dad from Browders in the road, and Aaron says they have a gifted surgeon named Pete who has done some amazing things and says he might be able to help Noah, and the gang sees Washington's skyline in the distance, and Rosita tells Abraham to look back. He's driving, notices a low voltage warning. He asks how much further. Rosita says they're halfway there. He says they can make it and smiles. The RV dies. They're forced to stop, and Glenn says they need another battery, but Abraham is being extremely pessimistic. Like, he doesn't care. That he's just being Abraham, basically. So Glenn shows him a backup battery, and that's how he knows. He actually knew from Dale's RV way back in season 1, so he's not exactly telling him the truth right now. And Michonne tells Rick he needs to let it go. She says the flight has kept him warm, fed, and alive. It says it turns on you, and he has to let it go. And Rick says Bob was trying to tell him they're back at the church when to rest, when it's safe, and when to let someone in. And Rick says the rules keep changing. Michonne says it did for her too. And they all cheer when Glenn gets the RV started again. Rick tells Michonne he needs a moment before they leave, walks in the woods to a nearby house, picks up an empty blender, hides his gun in it, then puts the lid on. He's making an emergency weapon cache, and they pull up at a large metal fence, and Rick hears the sounds of children playing, looks at Michonne. She takes his hand and asks if he's ready. He nods. The others get out of the RV, and it's just like, can they actually trust these guys? And he parks the car, turns it off. Rick gets Judith out, and Carol tells Rick even when he's wrong, he's still right. He tells Judith, here we go. They all go to the fence, and that's how the episode ends. So, basically, we don't know if we can trust these people, but to me, it seems like they are trustworthy. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I really do like Aaron and Eric's characters. They're very different from anyone else they have encountered, definitely. 1, because Aaron and Eric are a gay couple, and they haven't dealt with that. 2, because Aaron just seems like a genuine, nice guy who can relate to them a lot, and really knows how to help them, even though he has killed, he's killed people, but Eric, I don't know, he seems kind of harmless. I'm honestly kind of worried about Eric. Eric, to me, seems like a guy that's gonna die. He really does. Aaron, I think he's gonna live, but I think Eric is gonna die, definitely. I can see Eric dying. He seems defenseless, although we have not seen him shoot anything. We haven't seen him with any walkers, so you don't know, but he just seems kind of defenseless to me. Now, let's talk about Abraham. I really like that we got some character development with Abraham. I definitely think that Abraham is starting to become a better person. He needs to sort of slow down a little bit. I think one of the things I do want to talk about this season is a villain. A lot of people are disappointed with the season because we don't have much of a villain right now, much of a threat. And I think the reason is because this group is no longer about let's take down our threats. It's about let's get our humanity back and let's get our trust back and let's, most importantly, hope. That is not something the group has right now. They don't have hope. They don't have a moral compass. They don't have even humanity right now. They're slowly getting it back, and I think that's really what the theme of this second half of the season is. The group trying to get back humanity, and then they can have some threats. That's why I don't think there's going to be a villain this season. If there's no villain the second half of the season, I'm fine with that. I honestly want this season to be the group trying to find humanity and trying to help themselves, because after what they've gone through, after Beth dying, after Tyrese dying, they need to sort of take a little break from villains, definitely. And I think that now is the perfect time to do that because I really do want to get more into their characters, and I definitely really enjoyed that. So That was really good as well. That's basically my review, though. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Now, I have heard people say this was a filler episode. I don't think it was a filler episode because I do think we're going to see Aaron and Eric again, definitely. I don't think that's the last time we're going to see them. But that's in my review. Let me know what you guys saw this episode overall. Do you guys think that they're going to be safe? Do you think that Aaron is telling the truth? I personally think he is telling the truth, but we'll have to see what happens there. Eric, as I said, I'm very concerned about. I don't know if he is going to be able to take down walkers, especially because he has a broken leg. He just seems kind of defenseless to me. But you never know. Maybe Aaron killed someone because he was protecting Eric. Maybe that's why he had to kill some people. So maybe we don't know much of why his leg is broken. We don't know much about that. So I definitely feel we're going to find out more about that. Noah's past. When we saw that scene with Noah, I honestly want to see more of Noah's past. I do. I mean, that was really interesting when we saw that. So I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there. And one last question, guys. If the group does not go with Aaron, if they don't trust him, do they have a plan? Because I don't think they do. I really don't think the group has a set plan. Rick keeps talking about going to Washington, but honestly, I feel this is where they need to go. This seems like their safe haven to me. It doesn't seem like it's going to get safer than this, and it seems like this is the place where they can be safe, and they can be happy here. They should be able to trust this guy, but I just think they're in a point right now where they really don't know if they should trust him. And I can understand that, but they definitely should be trusting him. He seems very trustworthy to me. But I don't know. That's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Better Call Saul. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.